The first light of dawn stretched lazily across the quiet town of Fairview. Rows of small, quaint houses still nestled in sleep, their windows fogged with cold. Emma Parker stood by her bus, a familiar figure clad in her well-worn uniform. Her hands rested lightly on the steering wheel, fingers tracing the grooves worn into the rubber. The bus herself had been a part of her life for years, a bright yellow monument to dependable routine. Yet beneath that cheerful facade lay a woman with untold stories. Emma took a slow breath, allowing the peaceful morning air to fill her lungs. It was her favorite time, the pause before the day's responsibilities kicked in, a moment of quiet reflection. Her brown eyes, sharp and observant, scanned the empty streets. She could almost hear the echoes of her past, the roar of rotor blades slicing through cold air, the weightless feeling of soaring hundreds of feet above the ground, and the precise mental calculations that kept her alive amidst chaos. In another life, she would have been up there in the cockpit of a Black Hawk, feeling the rush of adrenaline as she navigated through danger zones, her senses heightened and razor-sharp. That life, she often thought, belonged to a different woman now. Yet, somewhere beneath her calm facade, the skills, the discipline, and the resolve still dwelled, just waiting for the right moment to surface again. She glanced up at the baby. Blue sky streaked with streaks of gold, the peaceful village around her still waking up, unaware of what the day might hold. Children's voices began to grate distantly, a reminder of her daily routine, an unchanging pattern of safety and responsibility. Today, Emma knew, would be no different. At least that's what she told herself. But in her gut, there was an unshakable feeling, an almost instinctual whisper that trouble was lurking just beyond the horizon. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The bus pushed forward along the winding asphalt, its engine humming a steady rhythm that matched Emma's heartbeat. Outside, the town was coming alive. Neighbors opening storefronts, the aroma of fresh bread drifting from the bakery, children chattering eagerly at their bus stops. Inside her vessel, Emma was meticulous. She checked mirrors, inspected the brakes, made sure emergency exits were unobstructed. Every action was precise, honed through years of military discipline. Her hands moved with certainty, muscle memory guiding her motions. As the students boarded, she greeted them with genuine kindness. Ellie, a bubbly, exuberant girl, was the first to hop onto the bus each morning. "Good morning, Emma. It's really a beautiful day today, isn't it?" Ellie grinned, eyes wide with enthusiasm. Emma smiled back, her heart warmed by the girl's innocence. "Good morning, Ellie. A beautiful day indeed. Are you excited for today's science class?" Ellie nodded eagerly, tugging her backpack. "Yes, I love learning about planets. Did you know Mars has giant volcanoes?" And Emma chuckled softly, cutting in. "Save some for your teacher, Ellie. You never know, maybe someday you'll be one of the astronauts exploring those volcanoes." The bus reached the school, a modest brick building nestled among tall trees that swayed gently in the breeze. Emma stepped out briefly to inspect the surroundings and guide the children off the bus, her gaze lingering on the darkening sky above. Clouds were gathering faster than expected, ominous and heavy. Despite the increasingly gray horizon, Emma felt a mixture of nostalgia and foreboding. Her mind flickered again to her past, her days in the military, the missions that demanded split-second decisions, the drills that taught her how to stay calm when chaos reigned. She admired her current life, simple, predictable, and demarcated by routines, but deep inside, a part of her still yearned for the adrenaline of a helicopter's slipstream or the tense hush before a rescue mission in hostile terrain. That part of her was always lurking, ready to awaken at a moment's notice. The first signs of trouble began subtly, a deepening shade of gray across the sky, a hint of wind picking up in the trees. and distant rumbles of thunder echoing ominously. Emma, parked outside the school, glanced at her weather app on her phone and then at the dark clouds billowing overhead. The forecast had warned of storms, but she felt an instinctive unease. Something wasn't sitting right inside her bus. Emma checked the radio again, tuning into local weather advisories. The announcer's voice crackled uncertainly as heavy winds seemed to distort the connection. The words "severe thunderstorm warning" flashed on her screen, but she kept a calm exterior, masking her rising concern. Meanwhile, at the school, Principal Harris was dismissive of the growing signs of trouble. "Storms come and go. It's just a little rain and wind. No need to panic," he reassured staff, leaning back in his chair with a dismissive shrug. The school had weathered storms before. After all, and he didn't see this as any different. He glanced out the window, noting how the clouds darkened even further, but he was too confident in the local weather reports and their usual accuracy. Emma, however, remembered her military training. Trust your instincts, she reminded herself. She's faced worse extreme weather conditions, navigations through storms on tiny mountain helipads, sudden emergencies in hostile environments. Her experiences had taught her to read the sky with an expertise that most people lacked, and right now, her gut told her something was off. As she prepared to leave with her school children, she noticed the wind pick up more fiercely, whipping at the trees and scattering loose papers on the street. Her eyes lingered on the horizon, noting the rapid darkening of the clouds and the increasing roar of thunder. The storm was approaching faster than anyone had anticipated. Back inside, a teacher in the classroom looked out at the swirling sky and hesitantly turned to Principal Harris. "Sir, should we consider sending the kids home early? The weather's worsening." "Relax," he snapped. "It's just a storm. We've seen worse. Besides, the kids are safe here. We'll handle it." Emma's concern grew. The storm was no ordinary weather pattern. It was brewing into something dangerous, something that could turn deadly if not prepared for. Just as she was finishing her checks and preparing to begin her route, the wind suddenly howled louder. Sheets of rain began pelting against the windows and the bus's roof, and lightning forked across the sky in jagged streaks, illuminating the clouds like a terrifying strobe light show. It was then that Emma's worst fears started to materialize. This storm was not just fierce. It was potentially catastrophic. Emma's eyes darted back and forth between the storm front rapidly approaching and the dashboard gauges that flickered with strange, erratic light. The wind outside was escalating from a distant roar to a deafening, relentless cacophony that shook the bus's sturdy frame. Raindrops hammered against the roof like 1,000 tiny drums, each strike reverberating through her bones with ominous finality. Her fingers instinctively found the radio's push-to-talk button. She pressed it down firmly, voice steady despite the chaos. "This is Emma Parker. Weather is worsening rapidly. Storm front is moving faster than predicted. We're in a severe situation, possible tornado formation nearby. I need immediate assistance and guidance. Over." Static responded, distorted and harsh, as if the storm was fighting against their signals. Emma clenched her jaw, knowing she couldn't rely solely on the weather reports. Her gut told her this was no ordinary storm. She'd faced storms in the sky, turbulent, unpredictable, deadly at times, but this felt even more unpredictable. An edge of fear, buried beneath her training, tugged at her resolve. The sky above her bus, illuminated by intermittent lightning, revealed a shifting, unnatural swirl, dark, menacing, a giant vortex beginning to form. Nightmarish greenish-black clouds spiraled upward, spinning like a terrestrial cyclone in miniature. Deep inside, Emma could feel her military instincts kick into overdrive. She knew that such formations could spawn a tornado within seconds. Outside, the wind had turned into a savage gale, whipping debris into the air, a jumble of leaves, Loose branches, pieces of fencing, spraying against the bus like a destructive spray of projectiles. The entire landscape seemed to tremble and ripple as the storm's rage intensified. Emma's gaze locked on the strange vortex. Her stomach clenched. This is a supercell, unmistakably an intense storm with rotation. If it touches down, everything here could be lost. She fought to suppress her rising anxiety, knowing every second counted. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Asterisk in her years navigating helicopters through turbulent skies and tight spots, Emma learned to anticipate the worst, then double down on her instincts. Now on the ground, she adopted that same gotta-do attitude, calm, decisive. Confident. Her palms pressed against the steering wheel, knuckles white. Her mind replayed her training. Keep your eyes open. Identify the threat. Do what needs to be done. The storm's swirling tower grew larger and darker by the second, a jagged funnel of chaos ready to swallow them whole. Her radio squawked again. Louder this time, an emergency alert blaring through static. The warning unmistakable. Tornado warning. Seek shelter immediately. Emma's heart quickened. She knew this was serious. She looked around her surroundings. The open road ahead was flooded and slick, with debris swirling in the wind's deadly embrace. The nearest shelter, the school gym basement, was a quarter-mile away. But trying to reach it in this weather could be suicidal. Rain-lashed roads and flying debris posed lethal obstacles. She scanned the field beside the road, a large, flat expanse that was barren, scarred from previous storms, that might serve as a temporary refuge if she could get the bus there quickly. Enough. Her stomach twisted with a mixture of fear and steely resolve. This storm isn't just a storm. Her eyes fixed on the forming tornado. It was massive, a twisting monolith reaching towards the sky, an angry spinning pillar of destruction, illuminated by frequent flashes of lightning. The vortex was still, gaining strength, spinning faster, darker, more menacing with every second. I've trained for this. And yet, her mind also remembered something her military instructors had drilled into her. Never underestimate the power of nature, but never forget your training. Focus. Her gaze flicked across the dashboard, complex gauges, weather maps, satellite images trying to piece together her next move. Her hands tightened on the wheel as her senses sharpened, honing in on the tornado's movements. The air grew thick with suspense, every second feeling like an eternity. The wind screams rose to a deafening pitch. Heavy rain began pounding in sheets, blurring her vision and making her heartbeat accelerate. She could feel the bus being buffeted, pushed from side to side, threatening to turn into a tumbling toy. Her mind flashed back to her days in flight school, where turbulence was constant, and quick thinking meant the difference between safe landing and disaster. She had navigated beneath a blackened sky, working with instruments and her intuition, an experience now proving invaluable. Her decision had to be swift. She could try to outrun the tornado was growing, twisting ominously at the horizon like a giant, malevolent whirlpool made of dark clouds and razor-sharp debris. Emma's eyes widened as she watched that monstrous funnel of destruction spiral faster, a black and green menace feeding off the storm's fury. Her heart pounded with a mixture of fear and fierce determination. This was her moment, and she knew she had to act fast. Storms in her past life had required split-second decisions, piloting through dangerous turbulence, navigating obscured terrain, rescuing trapped soldiers. All of that instinct now sharpened inside her, fused into a single purpose: to get everyone to safety. She kept her eyes fixed on the approaching tornado, knowing full well that it could change course or even suddenly touch down. Her mind was racing through her options, layering her experience into a mental map. She thought, where's the safest place? Should I try to outrun it, or should I seek shelter immediately? The answer was clear, but not easy. She had to get the children into a sturdy shelter fast if they were to have any hope of surviving. Her hands gripped the steering wheel harder, and she took a deep breath that she hoped would steady her trembling nerves. Her training from flying Black Hawks told her that failure wasn't an option, not on the battlefield, and certainly not here. "Everyone, hold tight," Emma called out, voice unwavering despite the howling wind and rattling windows. "We're going into the open field over there. That's our best shot. Keep your head down, ears covered, and stay in your seats. I'll do my best to keep us safe." With that, she eased the bus onto the flooded road, carefully steering through the slick, debris-strewn surface. Her eyes focused on the field just ahead, a large expanse of flattened grass and dirt, swallowed with patches of standing water. Her mind alternated between the current scene and her training, calculating the distance, the wind's gusts, and the best approach to minimize risks while maximizing their survival chances. The storm roared like a freight train as Emma accelerated, her muscles tense with concentration. Every second counted. Suddenly, she felt the bus tremble, a jarring, violent shudder from an intense gust. She gripped the wheel tightly, muscles coiling in her arms as she fought to keep control. Debris hit the vehicle. A branch cracked against the side and scraped along the roof, her eyes fixed on the tornado, which was now swirling dangerously close. It was a dark, twisting column of fury, almost a mile away but rapidly closing the gap. The sky behind it boiled with lightning, illuminating its wrath. Time seemed to slow as she navigated through the chaos, each movement precise and calculated. Her military training told her to stay calm, to manage the turbulence with controlled movements, and keep everyone focused. Her breath steady, she whispered to herself, "Keep it together. You can do this." Just a little farther. Finally, she reached the open field, the designated safe zone yards from the approaching beast. She engaged emergency brakes and turned off the engine, sliding into a protective stance as the storm's wind battered the bus. The moment Emma's bus lurched onto the open field, a place that, just a moment ago, seemed vast and wind-whipped, she felt the full force of nature's fury. The storm was at its peak, a relentless beast cloaked in dark skies, swirling debris, and blinding sheets of rain. Winds screamed around her, a deafening howl that pierced through the metal envelope like a banshee's wail. Lightning flashed so frequently that the landscape was painted in stark white shadows, outlining the twisting funnel of the tornado ahead. A monstrous spiraling column of black and green, like a living fist, stretching upward from the earth to the storm's angry sky. It was close enough now for Emma to see debris caught in its spinning vortex, pieces of trees, shingles, and what looked like fragments of houses, all swirling and eddying with violent energy. Inside the bus, a tense silence fell as the children clung to their seats, eyes wide with terror. Emma's heart thundered not just with fear, but with the fierce resolve of someone who had faced danger on a whole different level. "This is not a drill," she told herself. "This is real." She fought to maintain control, fighting off the instinct to panic. Her military training, years of helicopter flying, rescue maneuvers, and crisis management, kicked into overdrive. The lessons: trust your instruments, keep the engine steady, resist the chaos, played in her mind like a mantra. Bus was now shaken by gusts strong enough to lift it slightly off the ground. She could hear the strained groan of metal and the rattling of loose objects. The windows shuddered as the wind battered them relentlessly. She knew she had only moments before the tornado's core could descend upon this field, and possibly the bus. But even in the chaos, Emma's gaze remained fixed on that swirling, deadly column. "I've trained for this," she thought. "Focus. Assess. Act." She took a deep, trembling breath, feeling the cold rush of adrenaline coursing through her veins. Her hands gripped the steering wheel as if it were a lifeline, because it was. Her mind calculated her options with razor-sharp clarity. The best course of action was clear: immediately seek shelter in the ditch and protect everyone inside. But Time was razor thin. Her eyes flicked to the students, their faces distraught, some crying, others just praying silently. Emma's voice broke through the cacophony of howling wind and thunder, calm but commanding. Everyone low down. Heads. Between your knees, cover your heads. Stay away from the windows. We're going to the ditch. Stay still, stay safe. She slammed the gear into neutral, gently but firmly disengaging from the engine. The bus shuddered and rolled forward, slowly, into the muddy depression. Sweat beaded on her forehead despite the cold rain as she turned her steering wheel with pinpoint precision, fighting against the gusts that tried to drag her off course. The tornado's roar grew deafening, an oppressive symphony of destruction. Flashes of lightning illuminated the terrifying sight. The funnel was now so close she could see debris swirling within its core, a chaotic dance of death. The wind's fury bent trees like blades of grass, and chunks of earth tore loose from the soil, racing toward her like deadly projectiles. Emma's ears popped as the pressure shifted dramatically. She held her breath, fighting the instinct to freeze, to surrender to the panic. Years of helicopter flying, of navigating turbulent storm systems had trained her to fight through the chaos, to hold steady in the eye of the storm. Now, she summoned every ounce of that discipline. This is her moment. The bus lurched again under the crushing force of the wind. It tilted sideways, threatening to topple. Emma fought to straighten it, her muscles straining as she kept the vehicle under control. Ahead she saw the hollowed-out ditch, a muddy depression that could shield her and the children from the tornado's direct strike if she could reach it quickly. "Hold on, everyone," she whispered fiercely. Her voice was the only anchor in a world gone mad. Through the rain and wind, she kept steering toward the ditch, every movement precise, deliberate, lifeline to survival. She hit the brakes gently, hoping the bus would slide into the depression without tumbling over. The vehicle slid into the muddy ground with a jarring thud, and Emma quickly shifted into park. The storm's howling reached a crescendo, battering the sides of the bus like a living beast trying to overturn its prey. Inside, she looked at the children, pale, trembling, clutching. The bus shuddered as the storm's fury hammered it from all sides. Outside, the wind's scream was deafening, a relentless banshee wail that seemed to shake the very earth. Lightning flashed like jagged knives slicing through the sky, temporarily illuminating the chaos in stark, deadly relief. Each lightning strike revealed the swirling vortex, a monstrous, twisting column of darkness and debris that threatened to consume everything in its path. Inside the bus, Emma fought to steady her trembling hands. Her knuckles were white, her jaw clenched tightly to mask the trembling of her nerves. Yet her eyes, calm, sharp, unyielding, remained locked onto the tornado outside, sizing it up, calculating her next move. The children were silent now, some crying quietly, others clutching their backpacks like talismans. They trusted Emma. She could see it in their wide, frightened eyes. She knew they looked to her for strength, for a plan, something to cling to when everything else was falling apart. "This is fight or flight," she told herself. "And I choose to fight." Her mind flashed back to her Black Hawk training, how she had learned to stay calm in the eye of a storm, to control turbulence and navigate chaos with focus. She drew on that discipline now, pushing every ounce of her experience into action. The tornado was drawing closer, a massive, angry beast tearing at the sky. Its furious winds battered the bus, shifting it side to side, almost tipping it over. The storm's pressure changed in an instant. "Hold the line," she thought desperately. "Hold it for your kids." She reached for her radio again, voice steady despite the chaos. "This is Emma. We're in a ditch, but the storm is still aggressive. We need backup immediately. I've got kids with me, and I need someone to confirm if there's any way to weather this safely, or if we should evacuate further." Static crackled in response, a murmur of distant emergency services trying to make contact. She clenched her teeth, fighting the instinct to panic. Suddenly, A fierce gust hit the bus with the force of a freight train. The windows rattled violently, and the entire vehicle lurched, tilting dangerously. The noise was deafening, a cacophony of thunder and wind and destruction. Emma's eyes narrowed. She remembered her helicopter flying in turbulent storms, how to stabilize against abrupt gusts, assess the safest course, and keep everyone alive. She forced herself to breathe, steady herself, stay calm, contain the chaos, protect the kids. She looked around, her gaze locking onto every detail. The children were clutching their heads or crying softly, their faces pale with fear. Some of the younger ones had curled into fetal positions, seeking reassurance from her presence. Emma's heart ached, but her voice remained calm, strong. "Okay, listen up," she commanded gently but with authority. "We're going to wait here until the storm passes. We're safe in the ditch, and I'll do everything I can to keep you all safe. Just stay low, keep quiet, and trust me." The wind intensified, hammering against the bus like a battering ram. Emma fought to keep her grip on the steering wheel as her muscles burned with effort. Outside, the tornado's eye was closing in its dark, ominous form, spinning violently. She knew that if the vortex touched down in this moment, everything around would be reduced to rubble. But Emma refused to surrender, not yet. She pressed her forehead against the steering wheel, fighting the storm's assault with every ounce of her strength. Her mind raced through tactics. There might still be a way to minimize danger, to buy more time. Could she try to radio for a rescue helicopter? Was there a nearby shelter? Or perhaps, in her mind, a way to outmaneuver the storm using her aerial instincts and helicopter training to anticipate the tornado's moves? Her focus narrowed, resolve hardening. She gritted her teeth and whispered to herself, "Stay calm, Emma. Focus. Keep them alive. That's all that matters now." The storm raged on the fury of nature, testing every fiber of her training and courage. But Emma Parker, a woman forged in the crucible of chaos, was still fighting. Because in her heart, she knew she wouldn't let this storm win. Not on her watch. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The relentless wind outside battered the bus with ferocity, a natural force that seemed intent on tearing everything apart. Inside, Emma's senses sharpened, every sound amplified, every gust felt as if it could rip the bus asunder. Her grip on the steering wheel remained firm, her knuckles white, her mind laser-focused on survival. Suddenly, the tumult outside slowed, the wind's rage abruptly dulled. A strange, eerie silence descended over the bus, broken only by the faint patter of rain. Emma stiffened, eyes flicking toward the windows, the eye of the storm. She recognized it instantly from her years flying through turbulence, an unnatural calm at the center of chaos. The swirling tornado that had threatened to destroy everything was still, contained within the spinning funnel, as if holding its breath in a moment of temporary lull. The silence was short-lived but profound. A second later, the storm's fury resumed with even greater intensity, like a beast awakened from a brief nap, retaliating with renewed wrath. The tornado lurched, its dark funnel twisting violently, seemingly throwing a visceral tantrum. Emma swallowed hard. The brief pause had given her a fleeting window, a chance to think, to act. She grabbed her radio again, pressing the push-to-talk button with trembling fingers. "This is Emma. The storm's eye has passed. I think we've got a window. But it's coming right back. I need immediate rescue flying or otherwise. The tornado is showing signs of intensifying. Confirm anything you can." Static responded once more. She listened carefully, heart pounding. The reports from nearby stations conflicted. Some indicated the tornado might be dissipating, others warned that it could be regaining strength. Emma's mind flickered back to her helicopter days. How to stay ahead of a storm cycle when the eye was first sighted and when to push forward or hold. Everything was about timing and trust in her instincts. Outside, the wind returned with a deafening roar, whipping the trees into a frenzy. The tornado's funnel reappeared in the flickering lightning, lurking like a predator with a hunger for destruction. It spun faster, darker, more violent than before. Debris was sucked up and tossed around like matchsticks inside the bus. Emma stared, her breath shallow but her instincts razor-sharp. Her hands remained on the wheel, her muscles tight. Every heartbeat, every breath was a reminder of what was at stake. She knew she couldn't stay here forever. The storm's patterns were unpredictable to survive. She needed to take decisive action. Options, she thought. Escape now? Remain and hope it dissipates? No, she had to think strategically. Her eyes darted once more to the ditch, just a few more yards ahead, and to the battered landscape beyond. The storm was unpredictable, but she knew one thing for certain. She had to keep the children safe. Whatever it took. Her mind made one last resolute decision. She would risk everything to stay as close to her training, her instinct, and her heart to keep these kids alive. The storm roared back with ferocious intent, a monumental force trying to shatter everything in its path. Emma clenched her teeth, her eyes narrowing as she stared at the black funnel spiraling not far ahead. Sparks of lightning cast brief, violent glows over the chaos unfolding outside, illuminating the twisting, whirling spectacle that threatened to wipe out everything beneath it. Inside the bus, the children trembled in their seats, clinging to their backpacks and each other. The rain hammered relentlessly, bouncing from the roof and windows, merging into a deafening din that drowned out all other sounds. Tears streamed down faces, but Emma's presence, calm and resolute, was the only anchor they had. Her mind spun with her past training. The countless simulations, the drills she had executed flawlessly, the moments she had saved lives by remaining calm. She knew this was different, a real storm, a living, breathing monster, but her core instinct was the same. Stay in control, make the right decision, and follow your training. The tornado was spinning faster now, almost directly above them. Emma's gaze flicked to the dashboard, gauges flashing erratically, instruments strained under the storm's assault. She saw her chance. Just a few yards ahead was the small depression she'd identified earlier, the makeshift refuge where they might weather the storm. Her hands moved with practiced precision. She shifted gear into drive and gently accelerated, fighting against the relentless gusts trying to push her back. The bus groaned as it pushed forward, heavily laden with everyone's hope and fear. As she approached the ditch, her voice cut through the storm. Kids, get ready. We're about to go into the ditch. Keep low and stay quiet. I'll keep you safe. Emma expertly guided the bus into the muddy depression. Her tires sank slightly into the saturated ground, but she managed to keep control. The bus stopped, just short of the treacherous center of turbulence, the vortex's winds howling around them. Like a living thing seeking to shred everything it touched, she threw the parking brake and climbed to her feet, gripping the edge of the seat for support as debris slammed into the bus and the wind rocked it side to side. Her eyes darted back to the swarm of swirling chaos outside, now so close she could see the debris spiraling within the tornado's eye, the ominous shadow carved by lightning. Her heart hammered in her chest, but her mind was sharper than ever. She fought the instinct to turn away, to abandon her post. Instead, she thought of the children, those tiny, trembling lives whom she had promised to keep safe. Stay strong, Emma, she told herself. Hold the line. Wait for the storm to pass. She knelt down on the bus's floor, covering her head with her arms, instinctively shielding the children, whispering softly, "Everyone stay low. Eyes closed if you need to. We're safe for now, just hold tight. I promise I won't let anything happen to you." The wind's fury continued to scream around them, the tornado's razor-sharp dance just above the treetops, an ancient angry beast lashing out with all its might. And amid the chaos, Emma Parker, former helicopter pilot, a guardian in her own right, clung to her training, her resolve, and her unwavering desire to preserve every precious life in her care. Storm outside seemed to press against the bus like an unstoppable force, a living entity determined to tear everything apart. Inside the tiny sanctuary Emma had created within the muddy ditch, the chaos was almost deafening. Every heartbeat echoed in her ears, a thunderclap in her mind, reminding her of how fragile life was in the face of such primal power. Emma's body was tense, like a coiled spring ready to snap. Her hands pressed against her knees, fingertips trembling slightly, but her mind was razor-sharp. She had learned long ago in helicopters, when turbulence raged and chaos reigned, the key was to stay calm, to hold the course for as long as possible. Her eyes scanned the interior of the bus, slowly drifting over each child, the small fingers clutching backpacks, the tear-streaked faces, the trembling lips. They were counting on her. Their innocent trust was her fuel, her armor. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves, reminding herself that panic was the first step toward disaster. The wind outside howled with a fury that rattled the windows, and every so often, the bus shook violently as if the storm was trying to rip it apart. Emma could feel the vehicle shuddering beneath her, the body trembling from the relentless assault, like a tiny boat battling against a monstrous sea. Lightning flared across the sky, bright, cruel flashes that illuminated the torn fabric of the universe outside, the swirling vortex, the jagged edges of thunder, and the angry cloud masses roiling in a chaotic display of destruction. For brief seconds, the landscape was bathed in a ghostly white, revealing the tornado's menacing shape looming above the treetops, almost like a giant eye watching, waiting for its next move. Inside her mind, Emma was replaying her previous missions, maneuvering helicopters into stormy weather, executing rescues in zero visibility, battling turbulence that threatened to tear her apart. This wasn't a battle in the air, but it was no less deadly. Finally, she lifted her head and looked out the bus's small window. The storm was still raging, winds shrieked as they tore through the trees, bending them like brittle twigs. The tornado danced violently in the distance, a massive twisting pillar that stretched toward the darkened sky like a monolith of destruction. Its maw was filled with debris twisting and pounding in the whirlwind. She watched the vortex, heart pounding, but mind focused. This is the moment. No room for hesitation. The library of her experiences flashed through her. She remembered the importance of patience in turbulence. Sometimes, the storm needed to burn itself out, to leak its fury until it exhausted itself. She knew she had to stay strong. Patience now was her best weapon. She gently pressed her hand against the glass, feeling the cold, wet surface. The rain was relentless, streaming down the outside, indistinguishable from tears she knew some of the children might have wanted to shed. She wrapped her arms around herself for a moment, anchoring herself, drawing from the strength she had forged in years of combat. Then, softly, she whispered to the children hidden beneath her, "We're going to stay like this until it's safe. Just breathe. We're alive, we're together, and I will keep you safe." She looked at her watch, a survival tactic she'd learned in the most dangerous missions. Always keep track. At least she knew how long they had been in this refuge, 15 minutes. But the storm's rage felt eternal. In her mind, Emma reached back to lessons from her helicopter days. Sometimes storms took time to pass. The key was patience, resilience, and knowing when to hold and when to push forward. The storm outside continued its relentless assault, but inside, Emma stayed vigilant, her eyes flickering over the clouded window, awaiting the moment when she could breathe freely again, when nature's fury would finally ebb, and she could emerge from her makeshift sanctuary alive and victorious. The cacophony outside persisted, winds howling like banshees, rain smashing against the metal shell of the bus, debris striking with relentless ferocity. Emma kept her Head down, her ears strained against the storm's fury, feeling every gust, every tremor as if it were a personal assault. Her fingers clenched into fists, fighting the urge to panic as the minutes stretched on. Then, suddenly, an abrupt lull in the storm. The howling wind lessened, dropping to a dull roar. The rain slowed its relentless hammering, diminishing into a steady drizzle. The swirling tornado outside began to lose some of its ferocity, its violent spin tapering into a less aggressive shape like a monster sated. Retreating into the sky, Emma's heart hammered in her chest. She cautiously peeked out from beneath her arms, eyes darting between the damp, fogged windows and the battered landscape beyond. For a moment, there was peace, a fragile silence that felt almost surreal. The tornado appeared to be retreating, losing some of its life, its fury spent, or so it seemed. Inside the bus, the children remained silent, their breaths shaky but calmer. Emma took a deep, measured breath herself, forcing her muscles to relax just a little. Is it over? She wondered, her mind struggling to hold on to hope. Then, in that quiet moment of false calm, a new sound emerged. A faint, ominous hum coming from the distance. At first, Emma thought it might be the wind, or perhaps another passing gust. But the sound persisted, deep, mechanical, unnatural. Her eyes widened as she immediately recognized the pattern. A drone and aircraft of some kind approaching silently. Through the thick rain, her military instincts kicked in. What could it be? An emergency rescue? Weather monitoring? Her mind quickly processed possibilities. But the ominous hum and the direction told her one thing for certain. This was no ordinary storm. Monitoring flight, her muscles tensed again, and an icy knot formed in her stomach. A new threat was emerging. The faint whirring grew louder, cutting through the damp silence like a blade. Emma's eyes snapped toward the sky through a crack in the curtains of rain-streaked glass. For a moment, her breath caught there, slicing through the thick clouds and rain, was a sleek, dark shape moving with purpose and precision. It was a drone, but unlike any she'd seen before. Its surface was matte black, smooth, and almost reflective, gliding silently through the battered storm clouds with a strange, calculated grace. Emma recognized the pattern. No civilian craft. This was military grade, equipped with cameras and sensors that could record from above, gathering intelligence. Her mind raced. Could it be a rescue drone, or was it something else? Her training told her to remain calm, to silently assess the threat without revealing her discomfort to the children. But her instincts screamed otherwise. Why now, she wondered. This storm has been unpredictable enough, deterring any approach, and now, a drone? She pressed her forehead against the window, watching as the drone traced a slow, deliberate path across the sky, hovering at the edge of visibility before darting behind thick cloud cover again. Its movements were purposeful, almost searching. Inside, her memories stirred, sensing the approach of an unseen enemy during her military deployments, feeling like she was being watched, assessed. This moment felt eerily similar. Her hands clenched into fists, her mind calculating all possibilities. Was this surveillance? A monitoring device? Something more insidious? The children inside the bus, trembling yet silent, instinctively sensed the change. Emma's eyes blanked with focus, her heart pounding, instincts sharpening. This new element, the drone, added a dangerous layer to an already deadly situation. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was low but steady. Everyone stay still. Do not make any noise unless I tell you. We're not alone. Something's watching us. She knew from her military experience that the enemy, if it was hostile, would be gathering data, assessing the situation before making a move. Or worse, perhaps they had sent that drone to keep tabs on the storm, on her, or even on the children. Her internal dialogue was a mix of adrenaline and caution. Stay alert. Stay calm. Think. Outside, the storm's remnants clung to the sky. A disorienting mixture of chaos and calm. The silent drone's presence marked a new chapter, a new threat that Emma would need to confront, one she hadn't anticipated when the storm began. Emma's eyes remained glued to the darkened sky, tracking the faint silhouette of the drone. Its presence was unnerving and unmoving, sentinel-like observers silently circling above, gathering information the same way a hawk surveys the ground below. Its sensors, or cameras, glinted faintly in the dim light, almost like an ominous eye peering through the storm's chaos. Her mind spun rapidly, weighing her options. She had no clear idea whose drone it was: military, government, private entity, or perhaps something more sinister. Whatever the case, it was undoubtedly tracking her, her bus, and the storm's aftermath. From above, inside the confined safety of the bus, Emma pressed her fingertips against her temple, trying to think clearly. Exhausted but alert, she knew she couldn't afford any mistakes now. The children, trembling under her care, looked to her for reassurance, something she was struggling to provide beneath her own mounting concern. Her first instinct was to hide her movements. Revealing herself or trying to disable the drone could escalate the situation, especially if it was hostile. Instead, she harnessed her military training. Observe, assess, adapt. In her mind, she evaluated her options. Should she attempt to communicate with the drone's operator? Could she use her phone to disrupt or jam signals? Or should she simply monitor and wait for an opening, trusting her instincts? The latter felt safest, but time was running out. She gently lowered herself to sit on the bus floor, pulling the children closer, whispering softly, "Stay quiet, keep your heads low. I need to think someone is watching us, and I'm going to figure out what to do." Her eyes darted to her surroundings, searching for anything that might serve as cover or a tool she could use. She noted a piece of metal debris nearby. Could she use it to signal, or perhaps obscure the drone's view? A sob escaped from one of the children, making Emma's stomach tighten. She reached out a steady hand, gently shushing them, whispering, "We're safe, just wait. Help is coming, and I swear, I will protect you." Her mind flickered back to her training. Every moment was critical. If the drone was unmanned and controlled remotely, it had a limited field of view. She needed to buy time, to figure out the drone's purpose, and to use her environment to her advantage. She inhaled deeply, steadying herself, knowing that the storm was just the backdrop. Now the true challenge was the unseen eye above, an unpredictable observer in a dangerous game of survival. Emma's eyes flicked again to the hovering shadow against the storm-darkened sky. The drone's rotors continued their relentless hum, an eerily quiet sound in the thick of the chaos. For all its silent technology, Emma knew that her next move could be anything but quiet. She had to act carefully. Brash moves could alert whoever or whatever was controlling that drone, and she had no idea what kind of operation she was dealing with. Her mind raced through every lesson she'd learned, each tactical decision honed from her years flying Black Hawks and executing rescue missions under pressure. The first priority was to establish some form of communication or interference. She remembered her military training. If you couldn't see the enemy, you used what environment you had to your advantage. She glanced around the bus interior. A broken piece of metal piping was near her feet. She could use it as a makeshift signal or distraction. Maybe, if she could somehow create a visual cue, she might lure the drone closer, or at least attract its attention away from the children. Slowly, she reached for the debris, feeling its rough surface scrape her fingertips. The storm's rain mixed with sweat on her brow. Her heart was pounding wildly, every pulse a reminder that everything hung by a thread. Emma quietly slid along the floor, positioning herself near the front window, just out of sight of the drone's line of sight. Her eyes remained fixed on the flying surveillance craft. She kept her hand behind her, gripping the metal pipe tightly, ready for a sudden move. She took a deep breath, trying to block out the chaos in the sky and focus. With her other hand, she slowly lifted a small Reflective piece of metal, perhaps a shard of broken mirror slipping it into her palm. The shiny surface could be used to reflect sunlight or even the intense flashes of lightning, creating a visual signal that might catch the drone's sensors. Her plan was simple: create a distraction, draw the drone's attention, and buy enough time to either disable it or escape. Today, Emma Parker had turned her military instincts into a new game of survival. High stakes in a storm that refused to cease. Her eyes narrowed. Time to make the move. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Emma's fingers tightened around the reflective shard of metal, her senses razor sharp. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside the bus, she focused solely on the hovering drone. Its silent gaze lingered overhead, almost as if it sensed that it was being watched, that someone was plotting countermeasures. Her pulse quickened, but her mind stayed calm. She knew from her training and experience that unpredictability was her best weapon. Slowly, she moved to the side of the bus, carefully positioning herself so she was out of the drone's direct line of sight. With a delicate flick, she tilted the reflective piece to catch what little light was available, angling it to reflect the flashes of lightning. Tiny particles of rain scattered across the mirror's surface, creating a flickering, erratic shine. Her plan was simple: use the reflection to attract the drone's sensors, drawing its attention away from her and the children. She raised her arm ever so slightly, directing the shimmering distraction toward the sky floodlights of hope amid the chaos. The moment was tense. Emma's eyes never left the hovering craft. Her breathing slowed to a measured rhythm, steady. Even as her mind darted through the possibilities, the drone responded. It darted suddenly, its rotors humming a little louder as it shifted direction. Its sensors, likely visual or infrared, focused on the reflective glint, fixating on the tiny flickering light like a predator zeroing in on prey. Its silent hum grew more urgent as it moved closer, dipping steadily toward the bus. Emma's heart pounded. This was her chance. She knew that if she could get the drone close enough, she might be able to disable its surveillance capabilities, either by physically disrupting its hardware or by jamming its signal. She had a limited toolkit in the bus, but her past deployments had entrusted her with various gadgets: small, portable jammers, tools, and improvised devices that could help. Her thoughts flashed to the possibility of using her military gear, those tiny EMP devices she kept in reserve, just in case. Those had the power to shut down electronic systems within a radius enough to disable a drone if used properly. She quickly rummaged through the glove compartment, feeling her way past maps, first aid kits, and emergency supplies. Her hand brushed against a small cylindrical device, her EMP jammer, one of the few pieces of gear she'd kept on hand for emergencies. In that tense moment, Emma knew what she had to do. She silently opened the bus door just a crack, keeping her body low and out of sight of the drone. With careful precision, she activated the device, aiming it toward the sky and the hovering drone. The moment the EMP pulsed outward, the drone's whirling blades hesitated, then suddenly shuddered. Its sensors flickered and died silent for a heartbeat, then still. The drone collapsed into a lazy circle in the sky, briefly cast into darkness. Emma's chest heaved a mixture of relief and adrenaline. She knew this was only a temporary victory, and she would need to act quickly to either escape or reassess her situation. But for now, the surveillance was silenced. She looked down at the children, some blinking in confusion, others crying softly. Her voice was soft but firm. "Everyone stay low. We're safe for the moment, but I need to get us out of here. I'll find a way to get us to safety." Outside, the storm continued to twist and churn, an unrelenting reminder that nature's fury was far from over. Emma's eyes darted toward the storm-shrouded landscape, the aftermath of her makeshift sabotage barely visible through the rain blurred. Windows. The drone's silent fall from the sky had bought her precious seconds time she desperately needed. Despite the temporary victory, she knew the storm still roared overhead, and the chaos outside remained unpredictable. Her mind raced, running through every contingency she'd trained for. What was the safest way out? Where could she take the children next? And most importantly, how could she do it without exposing them to further danger? She pressed her palm against the bus's door latch and hesitated briefly. The storm was still intense. Lightning forked wildly across the sky, illuminating the shattered landscape like a war zone. Winds continued to whip the trees and debris, making even the smallest movement a risk. But she couldn't stay in the ditch forever. She needed a plan. Think like a helicopter pilot, she urged herself. Hold steady, assess, adapt. Her first priority was to find a route to safety, to reach a place protected from the remaining storm and potential threats. The radar in her mental map told her there was an old, reinforced barn about a quarter-mile northeast, rarely used, but quite sturdy and built to withstand storms. If she could get there, she might shield the children until help arrived. She glanced at the children, who looked at her with wide, searching eyes. She softened her tone, voice calm and reassuring. "Kids, I'm going to get us to a better place. I need you all to stay seated, stay quiet, and trust me. We're going to move carefully, and I'll keep you safe every step of the way." She took a deep breath and slowly opened the bus door just enough to slip out behind it, crouching low to avoid the gusts. The rain welcomed her like a cold, wet curtain. Gingerly, she peeked around the bus, checking the landscape-smashed trees, flooded fields, and debris swirling violently in the wind. Her eyes caught sight of the old barn, a sturdy, weather-beaten structure with a metal roof, nestled behind a hill. If she could reach it quickly and quietly, she'd be able to get the children out of immediate danger. She took measured steps, staying low, her military instincts guiding her through the mud and puddles. Every movement was deliberate. She scanned for hazards, fallen branches, loose fencing, or any other debris that could turn her escape into a disaster. The storm still raged behind her, but her focus was unbreakable. Emma remembered her helicopter's hover mode during tight spots, the importance of slow, controlled movements and precise navigation. She moved into position behind a fallen tree, using it for cover, then pointed toward the barn, signaling. "The children to follow, on my signal," she whispered. "We're moving now." Her heart hammered. This was the critical part. There was no guarantee the storm wouldn't pick up again, or that the remaining turbulence wouldn't catch them. But doing nothing was not an option. Emma took a deep breath, trusting her training and instinct, and gently urged the children to their feet. They hesitated, trembling, but finally responded, dragging backpacks and clutching each other tightly, following her lead. She moved forward carefully, every step calculated, listening for the slightest change in the wind. Her mind remained sharp. Every shadow, every sound could be a threat or an opportunity. The old barn loomed closer, a battered silhouette against the stormy sky. If she could reach it, she could barricade the children, assess the next danger, and prepare for whatever came next. The storm's fury was still loud, but Emma knew her real fight was just beginning. Emma's feet pounded softly against the muddy ground, her senses tuned to every gust of wind, every shifting shadow. The rain had eased slightly, allowing her a fragile window of opportunity. The old barn materialized ahead, a battered relic of steel and weathered wood, standing stubbornly against the relentless storm. With practiced speed, she pulled open the heavy sliding door, creaking loudly as it scraped over the rain-damped ground. Inside, darkness greeted her. The interior was filled with old farming equipment, stacked hay bales, and dust that had settled decades ago. But it was sturdy more than enough to serve as a temporary shield. "Kids," she whispered, voice steady despite the chaos outside. "We're safe for now. Come inside and stay low. I'll see if I can block the door," We're going to stay protected until help finds us." The children hesitated, some whimpering, their small bodies trembling from exhaustion and fear. Emma carefully guided them into the barn, shielding them as she pushed hay bales and fallen planks against the door, sealing it as best she could to keep the storm's gusts and debris out. The metal groaned and squeaked, but it held firm. In the dim light, Emma knelt to their level, checking their faces and listening to their ragged breathing. She knew they needed reassurance more than just physical protection. They needed a moment to regroup. Her mind raced, assessing their situation. They had shelter, yes, but the storm was still raging, and the threat they initially feared hadn't yet passed. The tornado might be winding down, but storms often linger, unpredictable and dangerous. She pulled her jacket tighter around her shoulders, staring into the shadows, her military instincts still alert. What's next? She wondered. They couldn't stay forever. The storm could pick up again at any moment, and then they'd need to move again fast. "Listen, everyone," Emma said softly, her voice a calming anchor in the darkness. "We're going to wait here until the storm gets calmer. Then we'll see what's safe to do next. You're all brave, just keep holding on. Help is out there, and I promise, we'll get through this." She looked around the barn, gauging her limited resources. A rusty lantern sat nearby. She lit it carefully, casting a warm glow in the gloom. The flickering light revealed their ragged faces and the battered, mud-streaked clothes. Emma's jaw tightened. She had to stay strong for herself, and for the children. Outside, the wind continued its trembling assault on the structure. But inside, Emma Parker prepared herself for the long wait ahead. The storm outside still raged, but gradually the howling wind softened into a low, persistent hum, an unsettling lull after the storm's furious assault. Emma sat near the barn's battered door, the faint glow of the lantern casting flickering shadows across her face. Her eyes were vigilant, scanning the darkness beyond the weak light, every sense alert for any sign of danger or rescue. Inside the barn's cool darkness, the children huddled close, some crying softly, others trembling in silence. Emma gently stroked a small girl's hair, whispering words of reassurance, while her mind worked through the situation with razor-sharp clarity. Help is coming. That thought was her anchor, but she knew better than to rely solely on hope. Experience told her she needed a plan, a way to adapt if rescue was delayed or if the storm rekindled unpredictably. Her gaze flicked to her watch, almost an hour since she had taken cover. The storm's fury was waning, but she remembered her training. Storms can be deceptive, lingering in damaged landscapes like this, unpredictably dangerous. She pulled a small, crumpled map from her pocket, something she carried in emergencies, a remnant from her military days. It showed the local area, including possible rescue routes and safe zones. Her eyes studied it carefully. The main road, the only clear path out of this area, was submerged in some places and blocked by fallen trees. A smaller secondary route might still be passable, but it was longer and more treacherous. The sound of distant sirens and helicopter rotor blades reached her ears, the faint, hopeful signals of rescue efforts. But Emma knew from her experience that responses could be delayed or rerouted in the chaos after a storm. She had to prepare her own plan, assess damage. She would need to venture out once it was safe, to check the roads and look for other stranded survivors or dangers. Signal for help. She could try to send a distress signal using her phone if the network was still functional, or if the storm had disrupted everything, use her radio again. Ensure safety. Protect the children, keep them calm, warm, and as sheltered as possible. Until rescue arrives or she finds a way out. She looked at the children, eyes shining with a mixture of anxiety and hope. Her voice was gentle but firm. Everyone, I know this has been a terrible storm, but soon the sky will clear. When it does, I'll be checking the roads, figuring out our best path. For now, I want all of you to stay close, stay quiet, and trust me." Her mind was already working through her next move. She was a survivor, a protector. And no matter how fierce the storm, she would find a way to keep them safe. Because in the end, she had learned that true strength comes not just from training, but from hope and determination. That the storm's grip finally began to loosen. The relentless howling faded into a distant, uneven moan as dark clouds parted slowly, revealing shattered patches of sky. The rain had turned to a drizzle, and the wind was now just a whisper compared to the chaos moments before. Inside the barn, Emma kept a cautious watch. Her ears strained for any sound in engine, voices, or the distant hum of rescue vehicles. The children, exhausted and shivering, looked to her for reassurance, their trembling small bodies seeking her warmth and strength. She gently shook the small girl's shoulder, whispering, "It's clearing up. Help is on the way. We just need to stay here a little longer. I promise we'll be okay." Emma rose slowly, every joint stiff from tension. Her eyes flicked again to the map she still held. Now her instincts told her it was time to move. She had waited for the storm to pass, but the real challenge lay ahead, finding a safe way out of this wreckage. Crossing the flooded landscape and reaching help, she moved quietly, assessing her surroundings. Faint sunlight filtered through the broken ceiling, casting mottled shadows on the muddy floor. She took a deep breath. Time to act. First, she carefully placed the map and her emergency gear in her jacket pocket. Then, she crept toward the barn's entrance, listening carefully for any sign of lingering danger or rescue nearby. Outside, the landscape was a mess-strewn trees, fallen power lines, and flooded fields stretched out in every direction. Her sharp eyes spotted a small, partially submerged road behind a collapsed fence, perhaps the best option for a cautious escape. Emma knew that moving now was critical. She would lead the children out in small groups, carefully and quietly, avoiding debris and flooded patches. Her military training told her, the less noise she made, the less chance the storm could reveal her position or bring sudden danger. She crouched low by the barn door, peering into the fading light. Her gaze was steady and her mind was clear. Time to move. "All right, everyone," she whispered, voice calm but urgent. "We're going to step out quietly. Stay close, follow my lead, and stay low. I'll keep you safe." With one last glance at the sky, Emma pushed the barn door open, just enough to slip outside. The air was cool and damp, the landscape battered but still standing. Everything looked unfamiliar: shattered trees, pools of muddy water, and scattered debris, but her focus remained fixed on the small route she had identified. Every cautious step brought her closer to freedom. She moved slowly, listening for the faint sounds of rescue or danger, her senses sharper than ever. The storm had passed, but Emma knew surging hazards could still be lurking in the wreckage, waiting to strike. In her heart, she held on to one unwavering truth: no storm, no obstacle would stop her from doing what she had to do to get these children to safety, no matter what lay ahead. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Emma moved with deliberate caution, every step measured and silent. The landscape was a twisted mess: fallen trees sprawled across the muddy ground like wreckage from a shipwreck, their roots torn from the earth. Flooded patches reflected the dull light, creating dark mirrors that hid unseen hazards beneath the surface. She kept her eyes on her surroundings, her ears attuned to every sound: the faint crack of a distant branch, the muted rush of water, the soft whimper of a child behind her. Her heart hammered with a rising mixture of anxiety and resolve. Ahead, she spotted her first real obstacle: a collapsed section of the fence, partially submerged, blocking her path. She examined it closely, noting jagged edges and loose wires. Quickly, she assessed whether she could lift or bend the debris without risking injury. Her military training kicked in. Evaluate, adapt, overcome. She gently steadied a fallen plank, planning her next moves, knowing that every second she spent was a gamble. "Okay, everyone," she whispered low. "We're going to stay calm and keep moving forward. Follow me, and don't make any loud noises." She signaled the children to scatter in small groups, guiding them carefully around the debris, holding her hands out in a calming gesture. Her mind replayed her helicopter rescue protocols, imagining herself navigating through a storm-ravaged helipad. It was the same cautious, precise, relentless. The terrain was uneven and treacherous, but Emma pressed on, inch by inch, pushing through the wreckage. She checked the sky. Frequently dark clouds still lingered, and the remnants of the storm threatened to reawaken at any moment. But she refused to stop. Suddenly, a faint glimmer caught her eye, something shiny amidst the debris. She moved closer and knelt down, brushing muddy leaves away to reveal a small, dust-covered device, an emergency beacon, or perhaps a part of a rescue signal. Her pulse quickened. Could this be helpful? Could it lead rescuers to her and the children? Or was it just another piece of debris, discarded and insignificant? Her hands clenched around the device, inspecting it carefully. No matter what it was, she resolved to use every resource at her disposal. She slipped it into her jacket pocket, next to her map and gear. Now, with renewed focus, Emma guided the children toward a faint trail through the wreckage, a route toward higher ground and the road that might still be passable. Every step was riddled with danger, but she knew she was getting closer to hope. And in her mind, she held one unshakable truth. No matter how shattered everything looked, she would find a way, because resilience, she understood, was born from facing the storm head-on and never giving in. Emma moved quickly but carefully, her eyes constantly scanning the terrain for signs of safety and danger. The debris-strewn landscape stretched out before her like a war zone. Fallen trees, scattered roofing, and pools of muddy water made each step a calculated risk. Despite the chaos, she kept her focus on the distant glow of a faint blue light, her first hint that rescue might be near. She motioned for the children to follow, whispering calm instructions. Her military instinct told her to guide them toward higher ground, a slight hill that was barely visible through the fog and debris. It was the only natural elevation in an otherwise flattened landscape. As they moved, a distant sound caught her attention, an engine, faint but steady. Her senses sharpened. Could it be a rescue vehicle or another threat? She didn't pause, but her heart beat faster, hope flickering like a candle in a storm. The landscape grew more open as she pushed through the wreckage, the faint glow revealing a narrow dirt road. She remembered her old map, the route that led toward the village and the main highway, just past the debris and flooded patches. If she could reach that road, they'd have a much better chance. Suddenly, a faint ringing buzz grew louder, the sound of a drone's rotor, far off but unmistakably nearby. Emma froze for a split second, then instinct took over. She quickly signaled for the children to duck behind a snapped-off tree trunk, pressing herself low into survival mode. Peering cautiously around her cover, Emma saw it, another drone. This one larger and more advanced, drifting above the landscape like a dark shadow against the clearing sky. Its sensors swept across the terrain, searching, observing. It had been tracking her all along. But something was different now. The drone's surveillance seemed less focused, more distant. Maybe the earlier disruption with her makeshift device had gotten its attention, or perhaps the recovering weather had temporarily thrown it off course. In her mind, Emma quickly considered her options. She had already disabled the smaller drone with the EM pump, or she could use the battlefield environment to her advantage again. The debris, the flooded patches, the broken terrain, these could serve as obstacles to mask her movement or to create distractions. She looked at the children's small figures, crouched behind the fallen trees, eyes wide with wonder and fear. Emma clenched her jaw. This isn't over. Not yet. With renewed resolve, she whispered, "We're close. Keep moving quietly. We might still have a chance to get to that road before they find us." Her pulse thundered in her ears. Every second mattered. Emma Parker was battered, but not beaten, driven by her unbreakable will to survive and protect. The storm may have ended, but the battlefield was only just beginning. Emma moved swiftly, her every step purposeful, guided by a harrowing mix of hope and cautious dread. The faint glow of the distant road beckoned through the wreckage and access. Point to salvation waiting just beyond reach. Every muscle in her body screamed from exhaustion, but she kept going, driven by the urgent need to get the children to safety. She signaled to the children, her voice low but commanding. "We're almost there. Stay close, stay quiet. We're heading for the road. Once we get there, help will be much closer." The terrain was treacherous. Mud pulled at their boots. Roots threatened to trip them, and flooded patches hidden beneath muddy water could swallow them in an instant. Emma kept a mental checklist. Stay low, move slowly. Avoid loud noises or alert any threats. Suddenly, the distant drone reappeared. A shadow streaked overhead, its sensors probing the area like a wolf hunting prey. Emma's heart pounded her. Earlier effort to disable the smaller drone might have only bought her a brief window. This one was bigger, faster, more sophisticated. Stay calm, she urged herself. Her military training took over, filtering out fear, sharpening focus. She knew. The terrain her helicopter days had trained her to read landscapes quickly and use the environment to her advantage. She stealthily took cover behind a fallen log, signaling the children to do the same. The drone's shadow loomed overhead as it swept across the landscape, then shifted direction, moving towards the area where Emma and the children hid. There. Window was closing. Thinking fast, Emma grabbed the handful of broken branches, rocks, and started tossing them in the opposite direction of her target, creating noise and distraction. The idea was simple: attract the drone's attention away from her and her group, leading it into a dangerous patch of flooded debris where it would be more vulnerable or temporarily lose track. The drone hesitated, then spiraled toward the false target, its sensors locked onto the chaos. Emma seized the moment, a slow, quiet crawl toward the edge of the road, keeping her movements deliberate and low. Finally, she reached the shoulder of the dirt path, just a few yards from the main road where rescue vehicles could eventually arrive. Her fingers fumbled for her radio, voice barely audible over the drone's distant hum. "Rescue, this is Emma," she whispered urgently. "I've reached the road. We're vulnerable here, but I need immediate assistance. Can you see us?" Silence. Then, faintly, an acknowledgement crackled through. Help was on its way. Emma signaled to the children to stay back as she carefully peeked around the corner, eyes fixed on the surrounding landscape. The drone's shadow passed overhead one last time, then disappeared beyond the trees. She exhaled slowly, her muscles trembling with relief and exhaustion. The storm had passed. But Emma knew better than to trust that everything was truly over, still watching the horizon for any signs of danger or rescue. Emma prepared herself for what was next. She would stay alert, protect her little group, and keep fighting, because surrender was never an option. The distant rumble of engines cut through the residual quiet like a promise. Emma's heart leapt as she saw the flashing lights of rescue vehicles approaching along the main highway, now visible through the clearing. Storm. She straightened, muscles aching, lungs heavy from exertion, but her eyes remained sharp and alert. The sound of helicopter rotors grew louder, an unmistakable sign that help was finally on the way. The terrain was battered, a landscape ravaged by wind and water, and Emma knew every second counted. She motioned for the children to stay low, behind the debris, as she cautiously moved toward the road's edge, scanning for hazards. One of the rescue crews spotted her first crane-like lights sweeping across the landscape, illuminating the battered terrain and the small mud-streaked group huddled near the roadside. A voice crackled over the radio. "Emma, we see you. You're safe now. Keep low, and help will be there in moments." Emma's shoulders eased slightly, relief flooding through her. She could finally breathe. Yet her mind remained alert. She had fought a fierce storm, hunted a dangerous drone, and kept everyone alive. Now she was face to face with rescue, but aware that her fight was not just against nature anymore. It was for survival and hope. She carefully guided the children toward the arriving rescue team. One by one, feeling their little bodies trembling, but their eyes now filled with tentative hope instead of despair. They were alive. They had endured. As rescuers approached, Emma looked back at the battered landscape, then straight ahead at the bright lights that promised safety. She had navigated through chaos, outsmarted the unseen threats, and kept each child safe. She was a survivor. And now, with the storm behind her, she was ready to lead them to a new beginning. The rescue team carefully loaded Emma and the children into the warm, flashing vehicle, their faces exhausted yet filled with relief. Emma sat quietly among them, her body trembling from the adrenaline and fatigue, but her mind now finally able to breathe. Outside, the storm's fury had subsided completely. The skies cleared further, revealing a battered but resilient landscape. Trees snapped, fields flooded, but life was returning slowly. The sun peeked through the lingering clouds, casting a golden glow that seemed to wash away the remnants of chaos. As Emma looked around at the scene, her thoughts drifted to the journey she'd just survived, each moment filled with life-threatening danger, yet punctuated by remarkable courage, resourcefulness, and hope. She reflected on the small, battered children now safe in her care, how she had helped their fragile spirits persevere through the storm. Her mind instinctively returned to her past, to her days flying through turbulent skies, her flying skills, her training, her duty. But now she realized her true strength wasn't just in the skills she'd learned in the military. It was in her resilience, her compassion, and her unwavering belief that even in the darkest storms, there was always a chance for a new dawn. As the rescue vehicle drove away from the wreckage, Emma sat back and closed her eyes for a moment, letting herself feel the weight of everything she had endured and the hope of what lay ahead. She knew life after this storm wouldn't be easy, but she also knew she had proven one thing: no storm, no matter how fierce, could break a heart fueled by courage and hope. Because sometimes the greatest strength is simply believing in a better future. As Emma sat quietly in the rescue vehicle, watching the battered landscape fade behind her, she felt a quiet sense of peace. The storm had passed, the danger had been bravely faced, and everyone had come through stronger than before. But what lingered most in her heart was not the destruction or chaos, but the incredible resilience of the children and the unbreakable spirit that had carried them all through. Her thoughts drifted to the future. Though the road ahead would be filled with rebuilding and healing, Emma knew one thing for certain: the true measure of strength isn't the storms we face, but how we choose to face them. The sky was clearing, revealing patches of blue breaking through the remaining clouds. The sun's gentle rays touched the earth, casting a golden glow over the battered yet resilient land. Emma took a deep breath, feeling the fresh, hopeful air fill her lungs. She had fought her hardest, and she had won by never giving up. Her story is a reminder to us all: no matter how fierce the storms in our lives may seem, hope and resilience can light the way forward. Because even after the darkest nights, dawn always follows. And so, Emma's journey, like ours, continues. With courage, faith, and a determination to rebuild, we can face anything that comes our way, stronger and more hopeful than ever. As Emma's story comes to an end, remember that everyone faces storms, big or small, in their lives. Sometimes they come as towering tornadoes, and other times as quiet doubts or fears. But what truly matters is what we do in those moments, how we choose to react, how we summon our inner strength, and how we keep moving forward. Let Emma's Resilience be a reminder that even in the darkest times, hope is always within reach. No storm is permanent. No night lasts forever. The dawn will come, brighter and stronger, if we hold on and believe in the possibility of a better tomorrow. So, whether you're weathering a literal storm or battling challenges in your personal life, know this: you are stronger than you think. Keep pushing, stay hopeful, and never underestimate the power of your own resilience. Because like Emma said, after every storm, there's always a new start. Thank you for joining us on Emma's journey today. Your time and attention mean a lot to us, and we hope her story has inspired you to face your own storms with courage and resilience. Remember, no matter how tough things may seem, hope and strength are always within reach. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more inspiring stories and meaningful content. And most importantly, stay hopeful and keep moving forward, because brighter days are ahead. And don't forget, up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. Thanks again for watching, and we look forward to sharing more stories with you soon.